The night the storm punched New Orleans sideways, I walked out of St. Augustine Medical with a head full of beeps, a pocket with $11, and 3 missed calls from my landlord. Rain kept slapping the glass like it had a personal issue with me. And by the time I climbed the 3 flights to my shoebox apartment, water had found my socks, my hair, and that last thin layer of pride I kept for emergencies. I just wanted heat. A dry t-shirt. Microwave noodles, then I saw him curled against my door, like a man who'd fallen out of a magazine and into a hurricane-ruined suit tie hanging like a confession. Dark hair plastered to his forehead, and in his arms a newborn hospital blanket. Soaked lips kissed with the faintest blue, I dropped to my knees before my brain could vote and said, "Sir, I'm going to help you. Can you hear me?" he whispered. Help us, and yeah, that happened. I brought them inside, turned the heater up, threw towels everywhere, checked the baby first, because that's what you do, rooting reflex there. Breathing shallow but steady, tiny fists batting at my thumb. Like she had business with me, I looked at the man. "What's your name?" He swallowed hard and said, Ethan Caldwell, and the name landed like a news headline. Caldwell Urban Works is stamped on half the cranes along the riverfront, and here he was in my thrift store chair, shaking, clutching a 5-day-old like the last light in a blackout. "What's her name?" I asked Lila, he said. And when I asked about her mother, he just closed his eyes and said, "Gone, no theatrics. Just a word that empties a room." I warmed a bottle, showed him the arm cradle tilted. The bottle tapped her back. He was terrified, his hands were glass. But when Lila latched, he made this broken little sound, like hope remembering itself. He asked why I was helping. I said, "Because someone once helped me. Because she needs 2 pairs of hands right now, because everybody deserves a soft landing at least once." And I told them to stay the night. Morning arrived like a hangover. Lila's cries bounced off my walls. Ethan paced grooves into the rug, I taught him. My baby tricks, shoulder-hold bicycle legs, tiny circles along the spine. He told me about turning his wife's pregnancy into calendar reminders, about missing an appointment. No one should ever miss about trying to finish a contract before racing to the hospital. Guilt is heavy, even when it's invisible. He wore it like a wet coat. I ran to the corner pharmacy with $80. I couldn't spare, came back with diapers, formula, receiving blankets, a bouncy seat. Lila immediately used as a stage, and for a few sweet minutes the world shrank to bottle bubbles and soft baby breaths, and the sound of Ethan describing a crane to a person who couldn't hold her own head yet. Then the knock came, the kind of knock you can taste. I cracked the door and found a woman in a steel gray suit with a bun tight enough to lift the economy I'm looking for. "Mr. Caldwell," she said. I told her he was resting, and she gave me a scan that calculated my rent, my choices, and my worth in under 2 seconds. "Sloan Whitaker," she said. "The Riverview Commons deal is wobbling. 15 million at risk. A few hundred jobs. The board's nervous. The rumor mill says, breakdown. You need to come home." Ethan stepped beside me with Lila tucked against his chest and said, "I am home." Sloane's eyes hit the bouncy seat. The plant on my sill, the towel on my chair. "We can compromise," she said. "1 meeting, 2 hours private family, suite, soundproof, fully equipped. Show your face, steady, the ship, come back here. You know what I mean?" It wasn't about compassion, it was optics dressed like help. I told Ethan we'd only go if the suite was real and safe, and I told Sloane if it smelled like PR, we would walk. She blinked at we like it was a typo, we went anyway. The Caldwell Tower looked like a cathedral that traded pews for steel. The suite was real soft, lamps, a daybed, a kitchenette cleaner than any diner I've ever trusted, a window that turned the river into a promise. The baby monitor hummed as microphones warmed up in the conference room next door. Ethan adjusted his tie with hands that still trembled. "How do I look?" he asked. "Like a dad who is also a boss," I said. "Go be both," I fed. Lila and paced and listened. The pitch started polished, slid into rocky. Then something cracked and the truth came out. "I lost my wife," he said. "I'm learning how to be a father." I remember why we build, not just structures, communities, roofs over lives, jobs that buy groceries and school shoes. The room changed. Temperature by the end, Riverview stayed and even asked for more. Sloane reappeared looking like someone had handed her a bouquet. She didn't want to admit she liked. We drove back to my third-floor world, and Ethan took my hand without a word. Sometimes silence is the loudest thank you there is. Routine found us duct tape and grace 3 a.m. Feedings, burnt coffee, laughter over nothing, because laughter keeps you breathing one night. I woke up, and Ethan was in the chair with Lila asleep on his chest, whispering his wife's name like he was keeping it tethered. I pretended not to see because some grief needs privacy, even in one room. Then he did the rich man thing. He tried to put infrastructure under feelings. Took me to a Garden District mansion with 5 bedrooms and fixtures that believed in themselves, the realtor said. "Timeless a lot," Ethan said. "We could be happy here." And I stood in a staged nursery and knew I would always feel like a guest. He tried to fix it with money, because money is the tool he trusts. "Let me hire you full-time with Lila salary housing insurance. Quit the hospital if you want. You'll never worry about rent again." He meant well. It landed like a contract I hadn't asked to sign. I told him no, not because the numbers weren't beautiful, because I am not a ledger. I told him how I spent years trying to become a mother. Fertility treatments. We couldn't afford an ex who looked at me one day and said, "I loved the idea of a baby more than I loved him," I told Ethan. If this was going to be real, we had to choose it, not outsource it. Smaller house, both our names on the deed. I stay a nurse part-time because saving strangers keeps me sane. He returns to work on our terms, and we make my guardianship of Lila legal so a judge can't erase me if life turns mean. We date for real babysitters and awkward dinners, hold hands in public, and not apologize for it. He sat there with the perfect house around us and said, "Okay," and the okay felt like a foundation, not a bandage. 2 weeks later, we moved into a creaky 1920s bungalow in mid-city floors that told stories, a yard that needed help, walls that forgave our paint fights. The guardianship went through. Lila learned to clap and never quit. Loan still called, but less. Ethan recut his work week and refused to miss bath time. I worked 3/12s and slept like a person who'd finally stopped bracing. 6 months later, the house smelled like coffee and baby shampoo. Ethan flipped eggs with the swagger of a man who had burned his share. First, the pediatric wing got final approval at St. Augustine, he said, and I pretended my eyes weren't wet. Then he pulled out a small velvet box, set it by Lila's sippy cup like forever belonged between breakfast dishes. "I've been carrying this around for 2 weeks, he said, trying to find the right words. "I want to marry you. I want to wake up to your annoyed face when I overfill the coffee filter. I want to keep choosing you the way you chose us." Lila clapped, like we'd invented hands. I said yes, simple as breath. I wish that were the last beat, soft music, wide shot, perfect credits, but life likes a twist. 3 days later, Sloane called without hello. Legal wants timelines. The board wants clarity on when your relationship began. Investors care about optics. She used my name like a problem to solve. A reporter rang my phone and asked if I had a comment on the rumor that Caldwell's CEO had entrusted company affairs to a woman he met in a hallway. She said hallway like a code word for trap. And then Rachel's parents had questions about guardianship, because grief reaches for a pen when it can't hold the person it lost. I held. Lila felt her heartbeat drum against my ribs and thought about Lanes who assigns them, who steps over the painted line and refuses to apologize. You know what I mean? The next chapter was going to be loud. So tell me where you land. Was I right to tell him no when no was the longest way home? Was Sloane protecting a company or a pecking order? Do families get to define themselves, or does money always get a vote? If the late wife's parents ask the court to redraw our lines, who deserves the pen drop? Your take in the comments, argue with me, teach me something I missed. And if you've ever opened your door on a terrible night and said, "Come in, you're safe here, tell me that story too. I'll be in there reading with Lila on my lap, and coffee I definitely overfilled."